what is going to happen is that we are going to see a United States of America which thinks that is losing its grip. So I am of the view, which is subject to being second-guessed, that a Trump presidency may very well be the presidency that will quicken the end of the wars. I am of the view that the United States of America is going to be very active in Africa as a reaction to China and Russia, and as a reaction to other players such as the Emiratis and the Turks.
This is a small extract of one of the most raw and unapologetic speeches you will ever hear from a wise African called Professor PLO Lumumba. Listen carefully to everything he is talking about because the amount of wisdom in it is mind-blowing.
The United States of America is a country that cannot be ignored. It still has the strongest economy in the world. It is hegemon militarily. It is a strong nation. Economically, it's a strong nation. And the reality of the world is that the law of the jungle is still alive and well, is survival of the fittest, the dying of the least suitable, and in truth, power still springs from the barrel of the gun. So we in the continent of Africa must pay attention. You remember that the United States of America has bases in a number of African countries, and going forward, we must define, particularly in the continent of Africa, we must define how we are going to engage with the United States of America. And my considered view is that a strong Africa will be able to engage in a much more creative and symbiotic way. A weak Africa will be manipulated by the United States of America, notwithstanding who is the president of that country after the 5th day of November, and of course after inauguration in the month of January 2025. I've always held the view that the Democrats and the Republicans in the United States of America are two sides of the same coin. So that in terms of international relations, I do not think that anything changes fundamentally. In my view, the United States of America has certain anchors which don't change in a dramatic manner simply because there is at the helm a president who is a Democrat or one who is a Republican. Of course, there are certain things that will happen a lot more prominently when a Republican president is in power, but in real terms, there are two sides of the same coin. The United States of America still wants to be the hegemon in the world. They want to control affairs. They want the dollar to remain the dominant currency in the world. They want their military to be the strongest in the world. They want to dictate what happens not only in the continent of Africa but in Asia. They want to be dominant in business. They want to be dominant in science. And it matters not who is at the helm, because I think beyond the faces, and in spite of the faces, whether Republican or Democrat, there is something that the American administrative machine does in the interest of the United States of America. Trump argues and is on record as saying that he'll do everything in his power to bring the wars to an end. And of course, even Kamala Harris says the same thing. But I think things have shifted on the ground so very dramatically that it may not be as easy as one imagines. And Trump, of course, was a former president, and the argument was in the United States that he had rapport with President Putin of Russia, and that could very well help in resolving the conflict in Europe between Russia and Ukraine. And you remember at one time, when Trump was the president, he also had very tough words against NATO, asking them to pick up the bills. So I am of the view, which is subject to being second-guessed, that a Trump presidency may very well be the presidency that will quicken the end of the wars. That is my own view. But easier said than done. one must be cautious in making such statements. The United States foreign policy, when one talks about Kenya or Africa, remains fundamentally constant. But there are those who observe, and I'm one of them, that during Republican presidencies, the United States of America does appear to support many more programs than during the Democratic presidencies, which is full of rhetoric and short on action. And I am of the view that the United States of America is going to be very active in Africa as a reaction to China and Russia, and as a reaction to other players such as the Emiratis and the Turks. Take, for example, in the single area, the Belt and Road Bridge program that is being done by the Chinese. The Americans are already responding with what is called the Lobito Corridor, which is to build a railway from Lobito in Angola through to Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo for purpose of extraction of minerals. And of course, they will also be reacting to the presence of Russia in the Sahel region and the presence of China as one of the leading partners of many African countries. So one will begin to see once again Africa being a theater of contestation of different powers, and those powers are the United States of America. Of course, one sees that even France, and it is not lost on me that the French have actually announced that they'll have a meeting of the Francophonies in 2026 in Kenya. Beggars belief. I do not know why they should do that. Kenya is not a Francophonie. You've seen the British also through the Commonwealth becoming a lot more aggressive. The Turks are equally aggressive. The Emiratis are equally aggressive. The Chinese are a little bit more subtle. They don't make as much noise as others do, but you see them in different areas. So what is going to happen is that we are going to see a United States of America which thinks that is losing its grip, and therefore whoever wins, it is going to be a time for activity in the continent of Africa. Kenya remains strategically very important in the Eastern Africa region and in the Horn. And that is particularly so because many countries in this part of the world are threatened with some kind of conflict. You go to Somalia, there is still some conflict. You go to Ethiopia, there is still some animosity. Sudan, of course, we know what is happening there. South Sudan is also going through its own difficulties. So Kenya has major strategic value. And I believe that whoever is in government will want to engage Kenya as an anchor country in that regard for geopolitical and geostrategic reasons.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this.